welcome to this interview for Cinezik. I am Martin Mavila, and today I am very thrilled to be joined by film composer and jazz performer Mark Isham, who is going to be guest of honor at the World Soundtrack Awards this year. Mr. Isham has been working in the film music industry for 40 years now and has written the beautiful scores for movies such as Point Break, Rivers Run Through It, Crash, Black Dahlia. And it's my great pleasure to be speaking with him today. Mr. Isham, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. It's a pleasure to speak to you.
Great. So how do you feel about being guest of honor this year at the World Soundtrack Awards? What does it mean for you?
Well, it's very rewarding. This is a very prestigious award. I've heard of it for years, and it's very highly regarded in our community and all across the world. So to be picked is a great honor, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, this is a world-class orchestra. To have them play my music, for me to hear that, and I get to play with them on a couple of pieces. So the whole thing is very thrilling.
Right, that's wonderful. And speaking about playing with the orchestra, what I find very special about your path is that you've really had two careers evolving in parallel, one as a performer and one as a jazz and as a film composer, which makes me wonder, how do they respond to each other for you?
I think in the first couple of decades that I did that, it was I managed to balance them very well, about 50-50. And then the music business changed. I started having children, and it became more interesting to stay at home and get to know my children and not be on the road. And also, the jazz world changed, and I found it hard to find the voice that I wanted to continue with. And so I think that brought me home for a number of years. And I've since come back and made records here and there. But it's the film business has kept me very engaged and very happy. And but they feed on each other very well. I think the act of improvising is one that it breaks writer's block, if I can be so bold as to say something like that. If you've had to walk out on a stage and make something up in front of an audience, compose on the spot, as it were.
Yes.
Then you can't get into that sort of I have writer's block, because you know that you don't. You know that you can do it, and you know that you can do it very, very well, and that you just have to do it then late at night when you have to write a piece of music. You just play something. And so that realization as a jazz artist, that improvisation is really just creating something immediately and at a very high level, really contributes to a certain level of confidence as a composer.
I guess so, yes, especially when it comes to scoring to picture with very, very tight deadlines, when you've got to write a piece that has to be recorded the next day. So I guess that must help a lot to literally, I'm maybe not so harshly, but some of your film music must be improvised sometimes, I guess, when you have very, very short deadlines to do the score. Or do you have time to rethink about it sometimes and rework it?
I always want to give myself some time to rethink it, especially for film music, because it's one thing to make up a piece of music on the spot, and that can be wonderful, and that can be very, very good and almost perfect when you do it. But does it fit the picture? Does that sad chord come in when she cries? Oh, it comes in 2 seconds later. Okay, well now the intellectual part of the process comes in, and you have to figure out how to get to certain moments at different time, and you have to change some things to reflect the emotion that the story is asking you to reflect.
Yes. And when it comes to scoring a picture, at which part of the process do you prefer to get engaged usually? Is it from reading the script, or do you have more inspiration from seeing the visuals? How does it work for you, actually?
I like reading a script, but I don't like really starting and working full bore on it until I see a reasonably well cut assembly of the film. To me, I do respond to the pictures, to the timing, to getting to know those actors as the character.
Hmm.
Uh, and so I'll even wait until the director has a director's cut that they feel really strong about, that they want, that they feel really represents their story and their way of telling it. And then I will start.
Okay, great. And as we know, one of the tools that is used very often with the movie editing is temp music, which can sometimes become a burden for a lot of composers. And I'm wondering, how do you deal with the temp yourself?
I try to learn from it. I engage in a very specific conversation with the director or the picture editor as to why that temp is there and what they like about it, what they don't like about it. If if a director says, this piece is perfect, I wouldn't change a note. I say, well, come on. Well, if you could do anything you want, what would you change about? No, no. Well, do you like the violin coming in right there? Well, no, if the violin came in a beat earlier, it would be better. Okay, good. So you like something a beat earlier. All right, well, do you love the flute? Well, no, actually, I prefer it oboe. Okay. And if you do this enough, all of a sudden you'll have an idea that they could change their mind about this temp, and then you can write something more original.
Okay, yeah. This is what we call the temp love, when the director fall in love with the. Do you have to face it often, or are they still open to suggestion when they see that it's actually the right way to go? Maybe not to make a copy paste of a piece that already exists.
It depends on the temp. If it really is very, very good, then I will learn from it, and
Mm.
I will try to employ those things that are being done that make it work so well.
Yes.
There are better ways of doing it. I will show them. Well, it can be done better, and take a look at this.
Okay, great. And in some cases, I had seen in a documentary about you that you explained that they had put a lot of temp on the rivers run through it, and actually there was a Celtic piece that actually sort of lightened everything for you, and you knew it was actually the right way to go with it. So yes, I guess sometimes the temp can be your friend just in a distance, and then it's up to you to develop the rest after that, I guess.
Definitely, a temp can definitely be your friend. That's one of the reasons you do a temp, is that if you don't know what kind of music is going to fit in this film, a composer could write 5 different scores and they could all be wrong, and you
Hmm.
would have waited months and months. Whereas in a week, you can try 5 different temps, at least of a couple of different scenes, and find, oh, that's the sound, that's the size of the sound, that's the quality of the sound, that's the genre of the sound, and then you have a place to start. So it can be a very, very valuable tool.
Yes, I guess so. And speaking about relationships with directors, does it make the job any easier when you have a recurrence with the director, like it was the case with Robert Redford, for instance?
I think so. I think once you get to know an artist's taste and the way they communicate, it can definitely help. It's all about communication. It's all about the interaction and being able to express your ideas and being able to accept another's ideas and discuss those ideas and how they might evolve and how they might be improved. And so the better relationship you have with someone, and the longer relationship where you understand how they communicate and that you feel you can communicate with them better, the better it's going to be. And you
Yes.
certainly develop that. I think I did 4 pictures with Mr. Redford, and you know, he actually happens to be a very good communicator. It's one of the reasons I think he is so successful, is that his communication skills are very, very high. So it's
Okay. And from your point of view, what would you say has changed the most in film music since you started 4 years ago?
Oh my goodness. Um, well, obviously the technology has changed tremendously. Um, I started before computers were musical instruments, so I did everything to tape. and made demos to tape. So demos were not nearly as expansive and as well. Just they weren't as full. It was very. It took so much effort and time to make a demo that it was impractical to make big full demos. Now, of course, you write as a demo in making a demo mode.
Yes,
That's what
definitely.
you do when you write music now. You write at a computer, you write using the sounds that you're going to hear. There's very, very few people use pencil and paper anymore. It's an electronic computer skill. Uh, and that's probably the biggest change. Storytelling is storytelling. I think the same filmmakers have the same concerns and interests that they had 40 years ago. Help me tell my story better. Let's make the happy moments happier, the sadder moments sadder, and yeah, that will never change.
Yes. And with all the experience you have now, what would you say is the number one quality a film composer should have today?
I think it is just the ability to communicate verbally, to talk to
Yeah.
people, and to be able to understand what they're saying, why they're saying it, to be able to accept what they're saying, and be willing to interact with that in a non-combative, non-threatening, in a very understanding way, to be able to have your own point of view and be able to present your point of view in a non-combative, non-threatening way, in a way that it can be agreeable to be accepted. And if that interchange, it's a given fact that you have to be a good composer. That's a
Yes.
given. But the success of that talent will be in the way you interact with the people that you are doing the film with, and the ability to duplicate what they want, to bring them your unique point of view within the scope of what they want.
Okay, great. And do you feel that this is something you were already comfortable with when you started, or is it something that you had to dive into over the years, this communication aspect? Because since you come from another background, that might be a different approach when it comes to creating, I guess.
Yes, it was something that I wasn't terrible at, but I definitely made some mistakes in the early years, and I definitely learned from those. And I feel now that I understand that completely,
Hmm.
that I can help even guide others to be successful in that way.
That's great. This year, you actually went back with to action movies with, of course, Black Light and the unbearable weight of massive talent with Nicolas Cage. That must have been a lot of fun to do, I guess.
Yeah, action films are a lot of work, but they're a lot of fun. There's a lot of obviously adrenaline, and you build these tracks that are very precise. When the car crashes and the knife goes in, and all this stuff happens, you have to be very precise. So it's a bit of a mathematical journey to get everything exactly where it should be, but at the same time be artistic about it, and that's challenging, but fun, but a lot of fun.
Great. And with let me think. When it comes to writing a melody, something that we can just hum or play on one instrument, do you have a specific way of working? Do you go to your initial instrument, the trumpet? How do you build a melody?
These days, I use mostly the piano for that.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm writing a very melodic score, I actually take a piece of paper and a pencil and I go back into the house where I have my mother's piano and my grandmother's piano actually, and I sit there and I will sit for a number of hours and just write out melodic ideas. I used to have a trumpet right by my writing console with a microphone, and I would sometimes use the trumpet and play and could record that quickly. Not so much in the last few years, though. Mostly the piano. Because then with the piano, of course, you can immediately start finding harmony that goes with it. What chords
Yes.
go with the best? And to be honest with you, I think sometimes I start just from chord progressions because that will give you perhaps the best emotion immediately. You know, three specific chords can define an entire emotional state. And if I get those three or four chords, then several melodies will just start to come. And I will refine that until the best one that, as you say, you take the chords away and you want to hum it. So what
Hmm.
is that?
Okay, yeah. So
That takes some discovery sometimes.
okay, so yeah, the chords appeal to a certain melody sometimes. You mean that?
Exactly. They bring it to life. They pull it from the air.
Yes, exactly. And maybe one last question, since I think we are almost done here. What is it that you find the most difficult about this job, and what is the most satisfying moment about film scoring?
Oh, the most difficult. I think, and this goes back to the ability to communicate. I think the most difficult sometimes is just dealing with the number of people sometimes that have opinions about. I've often observed that the more expensive a film is, the more people are going to be looking over your shoulder. Um, Usually on an independent film, you're working with the director. And the
Yes.
producer trusts the director. That's why they hired the director. That's why they're doing the film. They want that film to be the director's vision. If you're doing a big Marvel movie, you have lots of people with checkbooks lined up, making sure everything is going the way, you know, 50 million audience members are going to want it to go.
Yes.
So, and then you just have to you have to understand that, and you have to be willing to then. The director's happy now. There's three producers that have to be happy, and I get notes from them, and then balancing all of that. And again, if your communication skills are up to it, then it's fine. But that's probably the most challenging still for me. Uh, I think the most rewarding, certainly on an orchestral score, is that first time the orchestra plays that big scene with the
Mhm.
that you've worked so hard on, and it's for 85 people, and you're in a beautiful room, and you hear that, it still sends chills up, you know, up and down my spine. It's still just the most glorious feeling. So to be in Ghent and hear the Brussels Philharmonic play three or four of my big orchestral pieces, this is going to be the thrill, just total thrill.
Right, I guess so, yeah. And what are your upcoming projects? I've read you were working on the Same Sky by Jeffrey Kramer. Can you tell us a bit about this, or is it too early maybe to talk about it?
That film actually has been postponed. I haven't spoke to Jeffrey for almost a year now. I know it's still on the IMDb list,
Okay.
but as far as I know, that I don't think that film is being made yet.
Oh,
Currently, I'm finishing up a film for Screen Gems for called The True Haunting,
okay.
and then I'll be working on a film called Shooting Stars for Universal.
Okay, great. Well, Mr. Isham, it was a real treat speaking with you. And I wish you a very good stay at Ghent in 2 weeks and a lot of good stuff for the future.
Oh, well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, and I'm really excited about coming and hearing the music and meeting everybody and having a good party.
That's great. Have a very good day.
All right, thank you. You too.